Hi there. I'm Cindy Linden, and this is a Cookalong podcast quick bite. I want to tell you about my favorite knives. And I'm going to start by telling you about my less favorite knives and move up from there. I have a lot of knives. I like knives. I think they're fun. I have a thing about wanting to buy them when I see something new and fun. I have a number of different versions of pocket knives and multi-tools, and I just like them. Infer what you will about my personality from that. So I have this large selection of knives in my house. Some of them are just there because I use them sometimes and there's nothing else that will work. Sometimes they're in the category of, I guess I could use this one. And some of them are in the my favorite knives category. The most expensive knife I ever bought was a J.A. Henkel's Twin 4-Star 2 Classic Hollow Edge Santoku knife, 7 inches long. And it's interesting because it says on this knife, as I'm looking at it, no stain. So here's the thing. I spent $150 on this knife. And by the way, if you're interested, it's available on Amazon. This is really interesting, at $62.99. And on the Henkel's site, which is Zwilling.com, Zwilling.com, for $150, which is where I went when I needed to get one, these many moons ago. Needed being a relative term. Let me explain. My friend Pat, who has guest chefed on this show from time to time, owned one, and I spent some time house sitting for he and his wife, and they had this knife, and because I really admire him as a chef, I thought to myself, well, I too must have this knife. So I needed it. That's what I meant. They're made in Germany. It's very sharp. It's got the little scoopy outy parts that help it keep from sticking to whatever you're cutting so that the piece of cheese or whatever you're cutting doesn't stick to the side of the knife. It's got a great curve. It's quite heavy. It's well balanced. Here's the things I don't love about it. Number one, that it cost way too much compared to other things I'm going to tell you about anyway. The second is that it doesn't seem to stay sharp. It's a really nice knife. It's ice-hardened stainless steel. It's beautiful to look at. It's a little heavy, I guess, compared to some that I like better. And it doesn't hold its edge as I wish that it would. So you have to sharpen it. Now, that's not necessarily anything bad. I guess all knives should be sharpened a lot more often than I do it. But I just mostly want to cook. I don't want to have to stop and sharpen a knife before I do it. I might be in the minority in that, but nonetheless, that's the way I feel. So the other thing I don't like about it, and this is why I commented on the known stain thing, is because it seems to stain. It's like you can't get it completely clean ever. I don't know why. I mean, it's not that it doesn't stay silver, but it develops these little kind of white residue stains that are very hard to get off. I have tried vinegar and baking soda and thumbnail, and it just doesn't seem to really clear off of there. So it never looks as pretty as it does when you first get it. Next up, in my collection of my favorite knives, but toward the bottom, is one by Dahlstrong, Dahlstrong. And it's the first of several ceramic knives I'm going to talk to you about, because I like them. So this is a Barracuda 8-inch serrated ceramic bread knife. It's ceramic, but it is forged somehow. Dahlstrom talks about how they forge it under many, many pounds of something. I don't know. I should look it up. But I haven't gone back to buy more. When I first got it, I really thought it was incredibly beautiful. It's really lovely. It's got a gray handle, and the blade itself is dark gray, almost to the point of being black. It seems very hard, and it's very, very sharp. And it's the only thing I find that can cut the bread without crushing it, assuming that I don't cut it right after I take it out of the oven, because at that point, any bread will crush. So I use it every time I'm cutting a loaf of bread. This I found, I thought I got it on Amazon, but clearly I didn't because I cannot find it there now. The only place I can find this online is a website called 4cstore.com, FOURCSTORE.com, and it's $100. I don't think I paid that much for this knife, but I probably paid close to that. It was probably $70 or $80. At the time, I just wanted a bread knife that actually worked and was willing to pay for it. And this does that. My two complaints about it. First, I chipped off the end of it, and that is not reassuring to me. The very tip is pointed so that you can kind of dig it down into the bread, and that little tiny point has broken off, and it seemed to do it much more easily than some of my much less expensive ceramic knives. And the other thing is, it too seems to stain. I still wouldn't give it up because it'll cut things that other knives won't. You know, I didn't say that about the Henkels. I probably could give it up. But the interesting thing about that is I probably won't give it up because I paid so much for it that I feel like I better damn well get use of it. I also have something I call a bagel knife. It's probably my second most frequently used knife. In fact, I have four of them right now, and I have given away probably four more of them. I call it a bagel knife because it's small. They've got 3-inch blade on them, and then usually a wooden handle that makes them 5 to 6 inches long. And the blade itself is sort of spatula shaped. It's flat. It's probably 1 inch across, and one edge is serrated. I call it a bagel knife because you use the serrated edge to cut the bagel, and then you use the flat spreading properties of it for the cream cheese or the schmear, or for those who do that, the peanut butter that you put on the bagel. I believe the last time I bought some of these, it was through Amazon. You can also find them in kitchen supply stores, commercial cooking supply stores, but they call them spreaders. You won't find it if you type in bagel knife, I'm afraid. You won't find it if you type in small, serrated, rounded edged. I guess you might. I don't know. I didn't go quite that far with it. But when you put in the word spreader, you'll see them. And I use them for butter on toast. I use them for peanut butter. I use them for cream cheese on crackers or bagels or whatever. I find it one of the most useful knives in my household. Moving up, I have 3 ceramic knives by Kyocera. They're called Advanced Ceramics, and they have black handles, and the blades themselves are white, which is a little weird and makes you think you're using something cheap. And in a way, you are, because compared to those other ones, these are much less expensive. And I like them, first because they're light, secondly because they seem to hold their edge way better than metal knives, and I love that. And one more thing, you can tell me I'm crazy and that science doesn't support this, but here's what I think. That when you cut an onion with a metal knife, there's a reaction, a chemical reaction between the onion juice and the metal that makes your eyes water. I probably am making this up, but I believe that the ceramic knives don't do that. So I always cut onions with a ceramic knife. Here's what I have. It's called Kyocera Advanced Ceramic Revolution series, and I have a 5.5-inch Santoku knife. Now this is much shorter than my Henkels, obviously, but it weighs about half what the Henkels does, and it fits in my hand nicely and is easy to manipulate because it's so lightweight. The blade itself at 5.5 inches sounds short, but it's fine. I never have found anything it was too short to cut. This knife doesn't get dirty, and it doesn't hold stains, and it does hold an edge. You can get it at both Amazon and at the Kyocera manufacturer's site for $49.95. I really like it. It's not going to be at the top of my favorite knives because I have a new favorite, but I'll bet you over time I would have to go back and say yes, but this one I use more than any other knife in the house. In that same series, I have a little 3-inch paring knife, and it came in a set with the chef's knife. You can get it by itself for $19.95 on both the Kyocera website and Amazon. It's just this little paring knife with a kind of a curved point, so it doesn't have a really sharp point on the end of it. It's, again, black handle, white blade, very lightweight, and very sharp, and I use it for small things. In the middle, same series, is a Kyocera Revolution Ceramic Utility Serrated White 5-inch knife. That's a lot of words. To say it's a tomato knife I've had knives in the past that I thought were cool for tomatoes, and that's because they were small and they had a serrated edge. They were rounded at the end, as is this one. But this has, as opposed to your sort of regular serrated edge, this serrated edge is so small it's hard to even see it. The serrations are just tiny. On one side it doesn't show at all, and on the other side they're just this little kind of ripple you can barely discern unless you hold it up to the light. But does this thing cut tomatoes? Holy smoke. Honest to goodness. One slice through that skin. I use it on a lot of different things. But if I have a tomato, this is the only knife I go to now because it cuts things even really thinly without squashing the tomato. I love this knife. And the ceramic and the lightweight nature of it both appeal to me. I've gotten used to the white plastic kind of look of it, and would never give this up. If it breaks ever, I'm going to get another one. So let's talk about breaking ceramic knives, actually, while I'm at it. If you drop them on the point onto something hard, like a ceramic sink or a tile countertop, the point will probably break off. If you cut something with it and try to wiggle the knife back and forth, like let's say you're cutting a squash, and the knife gets stuck and you try to kind of wiggle it sideways back and forth to get either the squash to open or the knife to come out, chances are you're going to break it. They don't have any bend in them. They are really a form of glass. So you can't bend it the way that you can a metal. There's no give to them. Like my cutting board, which is a pull-out cutting board, you could accidentally jam the knife into the slot where the board comes out of as you're throwing it down after cutting a tomato, and then instead of sliding it back out, you pick it straight up, the end's going to snap off. They do break. Having given you that caveat ahead of time, let me also say that they don't break easily or often. I have dropped my knife, the whole of it, in both a ceramic sink and on the floor and on the tile counter. They don't break very often unless you drop them right on the point or try to bend them. They are fabulous. I just really like them. The weight of them, the edge on them, it's just nice. That knife you can find at both Amazon and the Kyocera website at $39.95. 5-inch serrated white knife. These three knives that I'm talking to you about, I actually didn't buy in this fashion. I bought them in sets, although I have replaced them because to me they are so inexpensive compared to some of the metal ones that it just makes sense to me to use them until tragedy strikes and I do something stupid. I'll just replace it. So I have bought some of these individually, but they also come in sets. The first ones I got were the 5.5-inch Santoku knife and the 3-inch paring knife together. They were a gift from my aforementioned friend, Chef Pat. That set is available on both Amazon and the Kyocera website at $64.95. And then there is a set that has all three of the knives I just described to you. That's the 6-inch chef knife, the 5-inch serrated knife, and the 3-inch paring knife. And Amazon has it for $76.31. And not that I advocate for buying things on Amazon, because I really don't. But the manufacturer's website for that same set is $99.95. Now, that's a pretty big difference, and it's unfortunate. But you might also check someplace like eBay to see if somebody is selling a set that they never opened. And that brings me to the final knife and my current favorite. Like I said, this may fade over time in favor of the Kyocera ceramic. But right now, this is the coolest knife. It is made by Victorinox, whom you may know for making Swiss Army knives. Certainly that's where I learned about them, and I've had several of their little 2.5-inch or 3-inch Swiss Army knives with scissors on one side of it, and a toothpick and a tweezer, or a little flashlight. I love the ones with flashlights, but I digress. So this is called a Victorinox Fibrox Pro 8-inch chef's knife. Yes, you're probably thinking I'm crazy. Why would I buy a chef's knife from a Swiss Army knife manufacturer? I'll tell you why. It's because I read reviews about it. The reviews were glowing. They were 5-star reviews. Everywhere I looked, people loved this knife. And the first time I went to go buy it anywhere, it was out of stock everywhere. I had to wait several months to even be able to buy one. And then, because A, I like to buy knives, and B, I get excited when a whole bunch of people are excited about a kitchen product, I had to buy it. And I just love it. Oh my gosh, it's really lightweight. It's an 8-inch chef's knife, but it's kind of wider than many. It's got an incredible edge on it. It's very lightweight. It's got a plastic handle. It's pretty to look at because the blade is so smooth and so shiny, and the handle is gray and just kind of becomes part of the aesthetic look of the knife. And it too, believe it or not, this chef's knife will cut a tomato without squashing it. It just slices through the skin as though the skin weren't even there, as though it had been peeled ahead of time. I love this knife. Now, I don't imagine it will maintain its edge forever. It is fairly new. I've had it for maybe 3 or 4 months, and I kind of pull it out for special occasions. As crazy as that sounds, it's like usually I use either the Henkels or my ceramic, and then every once in a while I go, oh, this is important. I can use my fancy new Victorinox chef's knife on this. And then I pull it out, and it's got a plastic sleeve, and I keep it in a drawer away from all my other knives. It's ridiculous. It was not an expensive knife, okay? On Amazon, you can get this knife at $41.35. That could be a temporary reduction. My guess is it's usually $49.99. And at the Victorinox website, you can get it for $54.99. I love this knife, and it just makes me gleeful to be able to pull it out of the drawer and use it and have it work so brilliantly. I highly recommend it, as well as the Kyocera ceramics that I talked about. That is my 2 cents on knives. Those are my favorites. And speaking of 2 cents, there's a superstition that says if you gift a knife to someone, they have to buy it from you. If you give a knife instead of letting them buy it from you, the superstition says that that will sever the friendship. So when I gift a knife, I always put a penny on it or with it. I tape a penny to it, goes in the card or in the package, and I give them both the penny and the knife, and I say, okay, now you have to pay me for the knife, and they hand me back the penny, and the friendships are not severed. It's just a thing I learned from my mother, and probably she from her mother, and who knows how far back, and so I honor that. I hope you've had a good time and learned some things about some knives you might want to try. Tune in next Saturday for a brand new recipe podcast, and the week after that for another Quick Bite podcast. Consider contributing to the making of this podcast through your Acast app. And until next time, happy cooking.